Hello everyone, welcome to the new video on Indian economic problems, and today's topic is need, objectives and strategy of planning in India. And this topic belongs to nature and structure of Indian economy. I'm Suraj Sharma. For more details you can email or text me. The objectives in last class we have gone through various theories of population and population as a problem or a prospect for India, and we have gone through what population policy India adopted after independence. In this class we'll be going through what economic planning is and need and objectives of the economic planning in India and a strategy adopted throughout this particular time period. And now what economic planning is, and we can have a gist from two definitions of Professor Robbins and Samuelson. Economics, the science which studies human behavior as a relationship between ends and scarce means which have alternative uses. So we have limited resources, scare means, and we have unlimited wants or the ends, and these scarce resources can be used alternatively. Someone will have to decide where to use these scarce resources first. By priority, as Professor Samuelson also extended this definition, and opined that this is very much related to the production and distribution of various commodities to a group of society. So here are the two parts of economic planning. Is first is decision making, and the second is resource allocation. Now resource allocation is done according to the need, nature and structure of the economy, and this decision making means making the priorities is done by state authorities. Now if we can differentiate between two types of planning, first is centrally planned or called directive planning. It's a comprehensive plan with the authoritarian approach of production, while the inducement or indicative planning is just an indication to the market, and it is a market. It is applied in a market-based economy. We generally take this indicative planning as a solution to the problem of imperfect information, because of many a times central government may not have perfect information about the market, so we use market as a tool and just indicate the planning, not actually we authoritize every time. Now, economic planning involves first is we identify the problems before the economy, then we rearrange these problems according to the needs and priorities and severity of the problem. Then we put a time frame for solving it. It may be short term, medium term, or long term. Then we fix targets to be achieved in a particular time frame, and we estimate how much resources are going to be used in this particular problem solving. Then we mobilize these resources like land, labor, capital, technology. We implement and execute the planning, and regular monitoring is done for evaluating whether the plan has succeeded or not. As far as India is concerned, just after the independence, we went for a comprehensive planning, and after liberalization, we mixed the planning approaches like comprehensive and indicative, and nowadays we are using decentralized planning as well. When we went for 73rd and 74th constitutional amendment for Panchayati Raj institution or local governance. Need for economic planning, as we know that we had multiple problems at the time of independence, and being a colony of British Empire for nearly 2 centuries, our resources had been exploited by British rulers. There was some after effects of World War II also, which ended just before India got independence, and we were facing the problem of mass poverty the supply side bottlenecks like the shortage of food grains or particularly foodstuffs, very low industrial base, and increase in general price level. And our education and health infrastructure was shattered, and because of low earnings, the standard of living was very low in India. uh, After all, India adopted socialism, and we framed a comprehensive plan for whole India. The objectives of the planning, there are four most important objectives of the planning as far as macroeconomics is concerned. First one is economic growth with stability, which actually related to the production scenario. Increase in real per capita income, increase the purchasing power, and because of this increase in purchasing power, there's higher demand. This demand may be for consumption or for investment, and ultimately it leads to higher output. Why I'm talking about stability here is only because we want economic growth, but with a mild inflation or a mild increase in general price level, because very high in inflation and very low or deflation may cause instability in the growth scenario. The second most important objective is to achieve full employment of factors of production like land, labor, capital, etc. And if there occurs problem of unemployment, it creates mismatch between demand and supply, and there would be a problem of underproduction also, because a mass would be unemployed. You would be having a high labor force, but actually the workforce will be very low. Reduction in poverty and inequality is the third most important objective of planning in India, and it is very much related to distribution. And being a socialist economy, it was of utmost important for economic planners to actually make balance between rich and poor, India and Bharat, regional differences, to mitigate absolute and relative poverty, finding causes for poverty and inequality, and make appropriate planning, targeted planning to vanish poverty and inequality from India. The fourth most important objective is ensuring social justice and equality, and being a welfare economy. Equitable distribution through economic planning was found most important objective. Changing objectives as the needs are changing, so the objectives are also changing, and nowadays we talk about economic development rather than just economic growth. Sustained growth, it means we do not want to reach to a stationary level where profits and investment rates drop down to zero. We want to achieve self-reliance. Inclusive growth should take place, means taking care of the least wealthy and including them in development process. Modernization of the sectors of economy by liberalization, privatization, and globalization. The LPG model we adopted in 1991, and major structural reforms. And why we are actually doing these things is to achieve a decent standard of living. Planning strategy adopted in India, we can divide it in two parts: before independence and after independence. After independence, we can also part it before liberalization and post liberalization. So before independence, we have some clues about planning in India. First is in 1934, a book, Planned Economy for India, written by Sir M. Vishwesvaraya. In 1938, National Planning Committee was formed by Indian National Congress to make framework for planning in India. In 1943, Gandhian plan was proposed by Shriman Narayan, where particular focus was on small unit production in agriculture, and it was based on Gandhian philosophy of Gandhian philosophy of planning. In 1944, Bombay Plan was proposed by eight big industrialists of India, and they proposed that state should intervene in economic development. It means no laissez-faire should be there. In 1945, People's Plan was proposed by M.N. Roy, which put greatest priority to agriculture. After independence, in 1950, Plan Sarvodaya was proposed by J.P. Narayan, which actually wanted to make balance between rural and urban India, public and private sectors. In 1950 only, Planning Commission was formed, which was an apex body in formulating plans for all over India and executing it. It is replaced by Niti Aayog, National Institution for Transforming India, in 2015. And in 1952, National Development Council was formed, which is responsible for decision creating and deliberations on development matters. Uh, as far as 5-year plans are concerned, in first 3 5-year plans we focused on trickle down theory. What this trickle down theory is actually about, it thinks that income benefits will flow from rich to poor if we do not put so much pressure on rich, because ultimately they will provide employment opportunities in the country. So low taxes on rich would be a good theory, and the benefits will actually flow from top to bottom. In first 5-year plan, we focused on agriculture. To actually achieve self-reliance. In second 5-year plan, we focused on heavy industries, particularly. So in first 5-year plans, we focused on trickle down only. From 1969 to 74, in the fourth plan, we actually adopted the spatial planning, and this spatial planning is actually a planning for the mm, for a physical for rather a spatial geographical area. A good example maybe for spatial planning is like urban planning, and it can be defined as coordination of practices and policies affecting spatial organization. This spatial means is relating to a space other than physical planning. What does it physical planning means? The physical planning is that where targets or objectives are fixed in terms of real physical resources, like availability of natural, human resources, raw materials, and capital resources. And what was is all about to mitigate the regional imbalances in the development. And we wanted growth with stabilization. I already mentioned this stabilization means not compromising with general price level. Okay. Now from 1974 to 79, there was a shift to growth with redistribution, and focus was on removing poverty, giving employment opportunities. And in sixth 5-year plan from 1980 to 1985, there was a mild shift to liberalization. And what does it mean? Actually, reorienting economic policies, deregulating economic policies, and delicensing. Actually, if you focus on this delicensing, what does it mean by licensing? At that time, for every production process, a private entity would have to take a licensing for production and increase in production. Right now, only in cases like distillation and brewing of alcoholic drinks, cigar, cigarettes, of tobacco and manufactured tobacco substitutes, electronic, aerospace and defense equipment, industrial explosive and hazardous chemicals includes in the licensing policies. And for the production of these, one would have to take license from the government, and for other production you don't have to take license. In 1990s, we adopted LPG model, that is liberalization, privatization, and globalization, and we formed new industrial and trade policies. Micro level planning was also done, by which you mean planning from bottom to up. And as I've already mentioned that in 1992 we have gone for 73rd and 74th constitutional amendment and given power to Panchayati Raj institution or local bodies. In 21st century, now we focus much on financial planning rather than physical planning, because now in 21st century every nation is very much integrated with each other, and we have moved from embedded capitalism to neoliberal capitalism. What does it mean by embedded capitalism? Here the government guided welfare and growth programs, but in neoliberal capitalism the power is transferred to private sector, and often we see public private partnership models. In neoliberal capitalism, now government is not there as in commanding situation as far as welfare and growth programs are concerned, and so much power is given to private sector. We have moved from socialist pattern to the inclusive growth of concept, and this is only because of increased globalization and international cooperation. Now we talk about knowledge led growth, because here the economies are now based on service sector in their advanced stages of economic growth, and a role of government is very much limited to just stimulate indirectly the market forces to generate employment, capacity building, and ultimately increase the standard of living. Thank you so much for being with me. In the next class we would be focusing on next topic of poverty and unemployment in India. Thank you so much.